How do you launch, market, and sell a complex product, especially when your target market is highly educated and skeptical? In today's interview, I speak with three experts that share how they took a medical device with a groundbreaking technology from zero to becoming a leader in the industry.
Are you looking for new ways to make your sales grow? You've tried other podcasts, but they don't seem to know. Harvest the growth potential of your product or service as we share stories and strategies that'll make your competitors nervous. Now, here's the host of the Harvest Growth Podcast, John LeClaire.
Welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to be speaking with Alli, Tal, and Noel today from CellSound Aesthetics. They've got a really cool medical device technology that is groundbreaking. We're going to talk a bit about the technology, and it's something that really everybody could benefit from, whether you're a practitioner, a physician, or whether you're a potential patient in need, or just want to learn about some cool technologies, and also the story behind the development, as well as the marketing and sales strategies that have really helped. No matter what your business is, you're going to learn some interesting things during this interview. So first of all, I want to welcome the three of you, Alli, Tal, and Noel, to the show. Thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So we're talking in 4 different locations today. I think this might be the highest number of locations we've done on one of these podcasts. So we're excited to kind of jump between not only physical location or states, but also different countries. And we can talk about it as we get little introductions where we're all at as we get into this. First of all, I want to start with Alli. So Alli, if you could at a high level explain the technology behind CellSound Aesthetics and talk about how it's different from competitors that might be out there.
Yes, that's such a great question. And again, thanks for having us on. We're so proud of our device, CellSound Aesthetics. We have this amazing new concept that our genius inventor created, and it really sets us apart from every other treatment option in aesthetics right now, especially devices. We are a regenerative aesthetic device, and that means that our technology is actually healing the body while it's producing the most beautiful results. You may or may not know this, John, and it's very interesting because there are a lot of different treatment options in aesthetics, a lot of different device options. And so you may think that they're all different because you hear different words like lasers, radio frequency, cryolipolysis, when in fact, all of these different terms are actually working on the same paradigm. And that is to use an energy source to create an injury to the body that the body then heals. Over time, what studies are showing is that's actually resulting in accelerated aging, maybe tissue irregularities. And so what we are really excited about is that our device is actually healing the body from the start. We don't cause any type of injury to the body, no pain, no downtime. We're actually using something called electrosonic resonance. That's a patented term that is exclusive to CellSound. And so we're actually creating beautiful results through resonance. And that's a really new concept.
Love it. Now, I don't know why you singled me out, assuming I don't know anything about us taking care of my skin. Just kidding. You guys all look great. And clearly, I need to use this technology and this product to repair my own skin. But you did a great job, I think, of describing how it's different from others. I do want to dive a little bit deeper into what you mean by resonance. So if you could explain that for our audience, in layman's language, what does that mean when you say resonance?
Sure. So resonance is really interesting. I think it's a word that people are going to start hearing more and more. And so the general public is going to become acquainted with what resonance is in its broad scope of application throughout our lives. But some examples of resonance could be the Schumann resonance. So you may or may not know that the Earth has a natural resonance to it, and that is called the Schumann resonance. It's a frequency that measures around 7.83 hertz, and it actually resonates within our own body, our brain waves. And so that is a really interesting example of resonance. Another example of resonance would be an opera singer holding a glass and using her voice to break that glass. So an easy way to say resonance is maintained vibrational amplitude. So you're using one vibration frequency to cause another object to either match that frequency or to resonate at a higher frequency than it would on its own. The really cool thing about CellSound, about our resonant frequency, is we take the cells up to a vibration that is very healthy and does not cause any damage to the cell membrane. So we're actually holding a vibration that allows excess blood flow. It allows lipolysis, or the transition of stored triglycerides into free fatty acids, all without damaging that cell membrane. So if you think of that opera singer using her voice to break that glass, so we are below a resonance that would break anything or cause any damage to the cell.
I want to go back to, I love how you described it as, not breaking something down and allowing the body to repair itself. But I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but instead of that, the resonance or the technology you guys have developed, is it fair to say that rather than breaking, letting the body repair it, that you are using this technology to repair? So it's like fix, repair, but without the breakdown. Is that a good way to say that?
Yes. Yep. So through resonance, we're increasing blood flow, we're increasing lymphatic function, we're increasing fibroblast activity, and we even have the ability to turn on the lipolysis process to shrink visceral and subcutaneous fat cells. And that's all with no damage or no injury to the body.
Which, as you said, leads to potentially long-term implications, negative for those technologies that are damaging and letting the body repair, because you do that over and over and over again, or now positive ramifications for your technology, which is just repairing and giving a healthy environment over and over again. So I love that for me, again, as a layman, non-physician, right? I don't really understand the technologies. It's not my world, but I get it now, right? Where it's really about that kind of separation versus damaging versus direct repair. I love that. So you guys have done some internal studies as well that have proven or shown the benefits of your devices. Can you talk about some of those results, Alli?
Yes, we have amazing studies, actually tons of studies. In fact, Tal has been involved in probably most of those studies. She's in research and development, and she can give really specific data and interesting answers about those studies. So I could share that with Tal.
That'd be great. Tal, if you could talk about some of the details of these studies and how they've proven how the CellSound Aesthetics device helps.
So the company started initially a few years back with a system for working on circumference reduction and using the body's released fat for energy consumption. After a while, we developed a system that works for healing chronic wounds, those wounds that did not respond to any other technology. Through both of these devices, it's based on the same technology, different intensities. The studies have shown significant improvement in the ability of the body to use its own tools to heal itself. So if you take data of over 700 patients in 10 different clinics that have been through these treatments, and they have, with an RMR device, which checks the content of the breathing, what is the energy that a body is using at a certain point, and you can see that the before treatments, the body is using mainly glucose and carbohydrates, and after the treatment, it's using mainly fat as a metabolic fuel. You can say for sure, it's over 700 patients, you can say for sure that the treatment changes the metabolic fuel. If you take over 50 patients with chronic wounds, and within 8 to 10 treatments, chronic wound that did not respond to any other treatment and actually healed with a healthy tissue, no scarring, no reoccurrence of wounds, you can say for sure that the system actually helped heal these wounds. When you combine the two and you get a face that has a skin that needs repairing, needs lifting, needs improving in volume, in texture, and you do these treatments and you combine the two with the special, of course, intensities and frequencies and hand pieces, you can say for sure that you have an improvement. When you go ahead and review results of treatments in different clinics, different parts of the world, and you can see that the system actually helped with circumferential reduction, with lifting buttocks or improving skin's volume and texture and tightening of an abdomen after reduction of weight or after having pregnancies, you can definitely see an improvement. We're doing basically on daily basis and assessments for places that want to have the system. They take in the system, they work with 10, 15, 20 patients, and they see an improvement in more than 90% of the cases. You can definitely be sure that it works not only on the studies that are performed by doctors in different places, but rather in your clinic too.
Fantastic. And I know Tal, I think, is maybe the resident expert on the science behind this. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper on the ultrasound technology. So we've talked a little bit about resonance, and we can talk about the interplay of that and ultrasound, or how they connect, at least from a topical standpoint, meaning a topic, not topical like medical terminology, to be careful here. So if you could explain, Tal, how ultrasound is used for therapy and diagnostics. So what does ultrasound as a technology do, especially with CellSound Aesthetics, to help with these therapy and diagnostic procedures?
So ultrasound is a known modality for years, over 80 years of experience with diagnostic and therapeutic modalities. So we started by taking technologies that we know that is for sure safe and reliable, has efficacy and safety, and we do not risk anybody. The thing is that ultrasound has focused and non-focused options. And when you use a focused ultrasound, you actually use it to damage tissue. If it's kidney stones, if it's tumors, if it's to ruin a tissue. In plastic surgery, they destroy fat cells. So the healing rate is, the healing results come from the healing because a tissue was destroyed. We have chosen to use non-focused ultrasound. First of all, it doesn't have just one point that it focuses on. It works wider. It works on an entire abdomen, an entire thigh, a wider range, wider surface. That's basically it. Focused, ruin, non-focused, improves. We are using non-focused, and the combination, as Alli said, with the electric currents that create an electric grid over the treatment area is what's enabling it to be active throughout the entire treatment process.
Thank you. Great job explaining that in a way that even I can understand. So I want to ask you one final technical question before we get into the business side behind CellSound. Can you just make the connection between ultrasound and resonance? We've kind of talked about both, and they are connected, but could you explain how does your ultrasound technology deliver resonance, if I'm saying that correctly?
Sure. It creates resonance. So what we want is for the cell, the content of it, which is kept as triglycerides and glycerol, to be separated. If they are not separated, the fatty acids are not freed and they can't diffuse out of the cell. The resonance that the ultrasound creates is the part that separates the triglycerides from the glycerol. It's a sound, since we're talking about ultrasound, it's a sound that creates a special, specific movement in the fat cells that creates the separation of the fatty acids, the lipids, the fat, any way you want to call it, from the glycerol. The glycerol is an important part of the fat cell, and it's important to keep it in because the glycerol is responsible for a very important process in the body that affects in the long term on hormones balance. So if you ruin a fat cell, it's being disposed out of the body, the glycerol is disposed with it, and then the entire endocrine system can go wild because it's counting on the basic amount of glycerol that we all have. I don't know if you know that, but the amount of fat cells when we are born to the day we die, if we do not go through any process that reduces it, is the same. So the body counts on the amount of glycerol for having an endocrine system that can count on the glycerol to balance its hormones. If we do anything that damages it, in the long term, the body has not gotten the same amount of fat, the same amount of glycerol, and then there are side effects that may occur later in life or later in the process of living.
Thank you. That's a great explanation. I want to shift gears, as I mentioned, and let's talk about the business, marketing, and sales strategies behind CellSound and what you guys have done, because you've got some unique things you've done that I think will be helpful for our audience, no matter what field they might be in. So, Noel, if we could start with you for the first couple of questions in this direction. I liked how you and I talked before this about how when you started the development of this, you were thinking with marketing in mind already, right? And so one of the ways you did that is you didn't start as a product, but I think how you worded it, you started with a solution to a problem, and then the product kind of came out from that. Can you describe a little bit further what you mean by that?
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, by the way, John. It's nice to be here today. As Tal and Alli have already explained, CellSound really kind of was developed in its infancy as a solution. And so you've heard about the healing properties and the different treatments that CellSound began as for wellness and the healing part of what this technology does. So it really came about as a solution to consumers. Along the way, we found the aesthetic advancements to be very interesting, and that's what we brought to market in what you're seeing in CellSound Aesthetics. So what we did along the way is made sure that we communicated the why of CellSound. What we did was talk about why it was created and what was different about it. And we wanted everything that we communicated to our brand partners who carry the device in their clinics and to our consumer base to really understand that we've taken a deep dive into understanding what they need and desire and what the results of their treatment should be. So that's how we kind of crafted our messaging for CellSound.
I love it. And can we dive a little bit deeper on kind of the why behind the product and how that's helped guide the branding decisions so far?
It is. So the why of everything that we've done is to take this emotional treatment. Our med spa clients, our plastic surgery clients have an emotional decision to make. It is a very trying experience to walk in and tell a provider the things that are affecting you the most and the things you'd like to change about yourself. And so it's already an emotional experience, but then to find a solution for those that's regenerative, that has no pain associated, that has, really results that are seen immediately is a story that we wanted to tell. And that's kind of what made CellSound different from everything else in the market.
And as you mentioned, it is different. It is a very unique technology. However, with that said, it's a very saturated market, meaning you've got a lot of competitors that don't do the same thing. They don't work as well, right? They damage rather than repair, or damage before repair. However, I don't know if I'm saying that correct, the right way to say it, right? They're different and not as good, but it's still a market that the physicians have to make a decision. Do I take your technology versus another? So how do you compete when you're in what I would call a saturated market?
I am so glad you asked that question, because one of the technologies that we haven't talked about yet, and really what inspired me to work with CellSound, I've been in the medical aesthetic industry for 7 years, and I have educated consumers to new brands along the way. And so when it was my turn to take this task on, one of the amazing technologies that come with CellSound is our photo fax center. And what that does is precision measuring before the treatment and after the treatment. So you are able to go through your experience with your provider, have the areas worked on that you want. And then from the moment that you walk in to the moment that you leave, right after these treatments, usually within half an hour to an hour, you're able to see your exact results. And so these camera systems show your before and after with precise measurements, with centimeters lost in the waist or definition in the face. And so there's not another technology that boasts the kind of results so quickly, but also show your patients visual representation of exactly the changes that were able to be made with one treatment.
I love that. I've got a good friend who's a plastic surgeon, and he's kind of above the neck, so which some, but not fat loss around the waist, right? That's not his specialty. But we've talked a lot about that and just kind of in general. And my understanding is, and I would assume from what you're saying, kind of the norm is when you go through procedures for fat loss and, with the competitors, you can take some pictures in front of a wall, right? And hope to look for some differences. And frankly, some of them are hard to see with competitors, especially quickly. So if I'm gathering, I guess, what you're saying, you can see even micro differences the very first time and sort of show that proof to patients so they see the results. And there's got to be some excitement that comes with that. Like, hey, I may not see the results in entirety yet from one procedure, but I can see it's working. And over time, now you go out to, kind of the wide shot of the before and after, that they'll see those results eventually. But you've got even small changes, being able to see that, to prove that it leads to happiness, right, with patients and seeing those results.
And they're not the small changes, I will say. They're significant changes. And the beautiful part of it is every treatment along the way, you can start with your first treatment and compare it to your sixth treatment and really see the evolution of the change there. But usually after just one treatment, Alli and Tal are the experts at this. When they're doing live demonstrations, we're never afraid to display our results because they're so significant. And that's one of the biggest differentiators with CellSound. We're not afraid to show that we make these visible results. But also, to your point, with some of our other competing technologies that are in our industry, there's no downtime. So people are able to get this treatment and walk right away from it, go back to work, go to their red carpet, go to, wherever they need to go, because there's no downtime, there's no redness, there's, no effects, but it's also not painful. I don't know. I know I've experienced many of the other technologies, and we see a lot of people that get a nice little nap during a CellSound treatment. No pain.
Nice. That's fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about, you've got, from a marketing perspective, really talking to two audiences, right? And we've kind of talked about some of the messages so far, but if I want to pull that into the same question. So we've got, something very technical, science-backed, a lot of detail that maybe the end consumer might not understand, but the provider does understand and needs to. And at the same time, you got to talk to the end consumer in a way that is, lay people language kind of thing that, again, I can understand, right, as a patient or an end consumer. How do you balance that, the kind of the need to speak differently to two very different audiences?
I love that question. And I will actually give Alli and Tal all the credit here, because they have done an amazing job of taking this highly technical, science-based device and, really providing these amazing treatments to it. And so for our KOLs and our device owners, these ladies are able to speak the language of science in effect and do a beautiful job of that. And so with schooling and education, the understanding of the technology is pretty much inherent. But to speak of the differentiators in the technology, they really do the heavy lifting there. My job for the consumer is to take this really technical, science words that we don't necessarily understand on a day-to-day basis and show how that applies to the treatment. And so most often everybody understands ultrasound. That is a key word in, medical, and it's becoming more and more known in aesthetics. So be able to take that and kind of describe it. Plus we do a really great job of educating our providers into talking to their patients. But typically the proof is in the before and afters that we're able to show. And like Tal said, we've got hundreds and hundreds of before and after pictures from our different providers that are able just to show the end user what to expect.
And I like the benefit of the visual before after, really, even though it by itself is not technical as to the why behind it, that can speak both to providers and end consumers, right? The end result, solving that problem is really what both care about, right? That's going to make providers happy and the end consumers. And the journey, how you get there, the words might differ, but it does come back to that end result. So before we shift away from marketing into a little bit of a discussion on the sales strategy, one last question for you, Noel. You started by talking about how you helped as a team, right? All of you, not starting with a product, but starting with a solution to a problem. And similar to that, when the product was developed, you guys have talked about how the design of it, the look of it was done with the end benefit in mind of, hey, we got to sell this thing, make it attractive to the end consumer as well. Providers may care less about the appearance than the end consumer who sees this, or influencers that use it or talk about it, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit about that, how the brand was really intentionally developed to be camera ready right from the get-go?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a pleasure. This whole project has been, so gratifying. We spent months doing interviews with our KOLs, with the inventors, with the leadership to really understand what they wanted to communicate with the solution that they were providing. Then we took a deep dive into the industry to really understand what our competitors were doing and how they were saying it. But to be the truest to CellSound as the brand and the solution that we wanted to roll to the consumers, we did multiple tests with color palettes and logos to be able to say that here's the science behind it, but here's the emotional treatment of it that yields the results. And so we were able to really kind of scale the communication down to precision imagery that we wanted to encompass what the treatment was, what the results were, what the foundation of the solution was. So that's the approach we took.
Thank you, Noel. Alli, a couple questions on the sales side. So a similar one to what I already asked to Noel is how do you differentiate, right? So we talked about that from a marketing perspective, but now as you take this into the purchaser, right, the provider's office to make these decisions, how do you differentiate?
Yes, so that's such a good question. I love giving providers words that they can really understand and make their own to then communicate to their customers, right? So maybe a little tidbit or a little bite that I could give somebody would be something like beauty through resonance, right? This is something very easy to remember, to comprehend, and then to share with others around you. So taking something scientific and then making it bite-sized, easy to communicate, so then our accounts can share that with their customers, right? Because we want our accounts to have great success. And our success depends on their success. And we feel very happy when we see our accounts being super successful with CellSound. So just giving them something that they can use, that's what I really try to do.
I wrote down the phrase you use, beauty through resonance. I think that to me is very powerful for a couple of reasons that I really want to point out to our audience, right? So the end result, the end benefit that really matters is beauty, right? That's why people purchase a service like this, is to feel and be more beautiful, right? It's not about fat loss, right? Like the negativity side. It's about being beautiful, right? And so I love that. Focusing on the positive benefit that they're all looking for, kind of that high level benefit, and then through resonance, right? So it's simple phrase gets back to how are you different from traditional ultrasound or other competing technologies, et cetera. So great soundbite to really differentiate quickly, and kind of a short soundbite that really hits to the heart of it. How do you reach and convince? So you got your audience. So talk about the providers specifically from a sales strategy perspective. Call them highly educated, highly skeptical. They feel like they've seen it all, right? How do you reach them and help them to understand the difference and the benefit of this product line?
Our technology really speaks for itself. So one of our favorite things to do is to get in front of potential new customers, providers, and really demonstrate our technology. Like Noel said, we have something other than just our electrosonic resonance that really sets us apart, and that's our photo fax center. It gives quantifiable proof that our treatments work. We've seen people lose 5, 6, 7 centimeters with one 30 to 40-minute treatment. That's undeniable. I've actually seen a man's pants fall off of him after treatment. A doctor that I treated at a conference, he had just had his pants tailored, so he knew that they fit. We gave him a treatment, his pants fell right off. So that's really fun, to see that proof that our treatment works. So the best thing that we can do is get our technology in front of people and show them, look, this is what we can do with our technology. And it's not just abdomen treatments, it's also face treatments. I love to give somebody a beautiful face and neck treatment. I'll treat half of their face, allow them to sit up, take a look in the mirror, and they can see that the side that's been treated is actually higher and more defined and more glowing and brighter than the side that hasn't been treated. So our technology really speaks for itself.
Love it. So with every treatment, you may need to give a free belt away to your patients, right? So keep their pants on. That's pretty funny. So last question I have on the sales side is, you mentioned you've got an innovative new sales strategy that's been really effective. Can you share some of that with us?
Yes. I mean, anybody who's in business right now knows things are changing really quickly. Our economy is changing from day to day. And the aesthetics industry is also going through massive change. Through the past few years, the aesthetics industry has just seen massive growth. It's exploding in every way possible. But in the past year, we're seeing that growth coming back together, right? It's pulling back in. Some numbers are even saying there's about a 20% drop in aesthetics over the past year. And that's for everybody involved in aesthetics is feeling that. And so to continue to be successful and victorious in a changing atmosphere, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to look at what's going on around you and come up with new strategies that are actually applicable to today's environment. And so our Vice President of Business Development, Moshe Frein, he is really a master at that. And so he's really been coming up with some really interesting new strategies for us. And we're implementing those as we speak. And that's going to allow us to continue to see massive growth. Whereas some of these giants, they're really not able to be adaptable in a situation like this. They have to, keep on with their years-long strategy because they have such a massive endeavor to support. So, many people say in times of recession, that's when the most millionaires are made. So companies like ours being able to be adaptable and flexible, we're going to see massive growth over the next year. Whereas a lot of the giants that have been around longer than us, they're going to continue to see a drop in their sales. So we're really excited about that. And we just expect to be a household name and for everybody to just love CellSound and to be the number one treatment in aesthetics.
That's such great advice. I love it. And I'm glad that you shared it. Is, as we go into times where the economy might be changing potentially, which is always changing, right? But taking advantage of any declines, for example, as smaller companies that can be more innovative and faster to be able to make changes, whether it's sales strategies, marketing approaches, et cetera. These are times to really take advantage of potential growth opportunities like that. So thanks for sharing. For our audience, I do want to suggest that you visit CellSoundAesthetics.com. If you're driving or if you need help with the spelling, you can go to the show notes, whether it's on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms you might be on, and get that URL, CellSoundAesthetics.com. One of the things they offer on there is a virtual demonstration. So the ability to, I believe that's live, right? So you'd be working with somebody from your company. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really fun. We've created this virtual demo video experience. And so we host a live virtual demo. It's really fun. It's very interactive. We've cut down, what would usually take a day for a demo into about an hour space to accommodate people's time and travel. And people love it. They really get to experience how our technology works, see results from the comfort of their office, their home. So it's great.
I love it. That's a very innovative approach and strategy, and different from just a video on the site, which is also great. We love videos, as everybody knows from Harvest Growth, and they're powerful, but having that live connection for something like this, where there might be a lot of intricate questions, et cetera, that's what that virtual demonstration is. Such a great idea. And I do encourage anybody who might be interested or has questions, please go check out the website. Again, cellsoundaesthetics.com. And to our audience, thanks for tuning into today's episode, where we uncover the stories and strategies behind some of the most successful product marketers out there. If you're looking to take your own business to the next level, be sure to visit perfectlaunch.com. You can grab a free copy of my book, The Perfect Launch System. It's packed with proven principles we've developed over the past 20 years, helping hundreds of businesses launch and grow successfully. Plus, you'll get an exclusive one-page summary from many of our most popular podcast interviews, real-world insights you can apply right away. Head to perfectlaunch.com and start building your perfect launch today. Until next time, keep learning, keep launching, and keep growing.